Good morning again, and a big thank you for leaving your dials locked on your radio experience. You can count on Eagles 102.3, and it's good that you have joined us as we get to discuss national issues across the country that pertains to our leadership and pertains to the economy and well-being of Nigerians. This morning, the focus would be on Kano State, where the Kano State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal has sacked the Kano State Governor Abba Yusuf and has declared the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Nadir Gawuna, as the winner of the March 18 election. Now, the INEC had declared the NNPP winner of the election, but then the court says no, that on the basis that some of the election materials, some of the ballot papers were not stamped, signed, and dated. About 163,000, over 163,000 voting ballot papers were unsigned. So that number was, was deducted from the votes cast in favor of the NNPP, and that reduced the votes of the party, meaning that the APC may have won that election. Recall that even before the Judgment Day, there had been speculations and a bit of tensions in Kano State. But as it is now, that the court has ordered the withdrawal of the certificate of return issued to Governor Kabir Yusuf, there seems to be a lot more tension in that state. Saying, reports emerging from Kano says that a 24-hour curfew has been imposed, but it seems like the people are not hitting the curfew, obeying that curfew declaration in the state. My guest this morning is one who understands the politics in Kano State and also understands the law and what it says. My guest is Barrister Abubakar Elzubair, who is a lawyer and public affairs commentator, joining us in the conversation this morning. Good morning, Barrister Elzubair. It's good to have you join us.
Good morning, sir.
Good to have you. Let's talk about Kano. That's a terrain that you're very familiar with. This is all that's playing out in Kano State with the judgment from the Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal. All that played out. One of the first things that stand out for most Nigerians is the question of the courts deciding to deliver judgments via Zoom, and also having tight security at the court within the court premises. And right after that, there's been some skirmishes in Kano State. What do you make of the judgment by the Kano State Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal?
The judgment has already been delivered. Parties have already expressed their opinions over the petitions. The lawyers to the various parties have also expressed their position. The position that is clear is that the NNPP and its governorship candidate have already taken a position to appeal against the said judgment at the Court of Appeal, which is a constitutional right guaranteed to any aggrieved party that is not happy or that feels that he has been shortchanged or his rights have been abridged in the course of judgment. The APC, as it is to be expected, has already expressed its gratitude to the tribunal and why democracy is working in Nigeria. Their various lawyers have made similar expressions. But before the judgment, there was a very high tension in Kano State, especially in Kano Metropolis, given that the party in the government house was a party that had always struggled to be there against the APC. You will recall that in 2019, many people adjudged that Abba Gida, then in the PDP, had won the Kano State governorship election. But because INEC declared it inconclusive, and there was election in a certain ward in Kano Metropolis called Gama, and other wards across the state, people believe that he was shortchanged from becoming the governor of Kano State. So when they decided and to come to the NNPP, a party that was slightly known in Kano State, all their supporters, especially of the Konkosia cult, trooped into the NNPP. And so the party became popular. And at the eve of election, the party was declared as the winning party in that state. You recall also that when the tribunal was going on with its proceedings, a lot of people were making unworthy comments, first against the tribunal, then against the judges. People were making all sorts of threats. In fact, it reached a height that last week, one of the commissioners in the cabinet of Alhaji Abba Ahmad made a threat that if the judges declared the judgment against the NNPP, they promised that the judges will not leave Kano alive. That made the governor to even remove the commissioner and one of the special advisors because of their utterances. So that heightened the situation, because on the other side, members of the APC were also ready for whatever showdown that will take place. Therefore, in the interest of justice and for the judges to be secured, and for the fact that the judges will want a hitch-free deliverance of judgment, such that even if there's an eruption of crisis, it will not affect the court or the judges. It was decided, and it is legally okay. It is judicially sanctioned that a judge can deliver his judgment via Zoom, and that is what the judges did. Although people who are parties to the proceedings were in the courtroom, they accessed the judgment through the Zoom, which was zoomed and seen, televised in the courtroom. People were given the handle in order to catch up with what the judges will do. I think that is the basis why the judgment was delivered via Zoom. And then you can see that there were spontaneous reactions from the various political parties, especially the APC and the NNPP. That made the Kano state government. And I think I allowed the governor for taking this decision by declaring that there's a curfew so that peace can be maintained, and so that nobody will be hurt, so that nobody will be killed, so that parties, before waking up today, will have a sober reflection of what had happened in court, and the need for violence will have been averted. I think it is a very good move, and I think we love the Kano state government for taking that decision.
Well, let's look at the judgment for a bit, and then we'll move on to what the politics of Kano has become. The courts, the INEC had declared NMPP winner of the election by declaring that they polled over 1 million votes, and then they defeated the APC with a margin of 128,897 votes. But then the courts, invalidated 165,666 votes, which was the basis for their decision to have APC declared winner, and asking for and declaring that the return certificate of return be withdrawn from Abba Kabir Yusuf. Now, what many people have said is, look, how come the 165,000 plus votes were all votes of the APC, rather NNPP, when it is said that the ballot papers were not stamped, signed, and dated? So would it mean that only the NNPP had those ballot papers? What could have played out in that regard?
No. The unsigned and unstamped ballot papers were against all the parties that contested the election. It was not against the NNPP, because there is no mark of any political party on the ballot paper except their banners or their logos, which contain the logo of all the political parties that contested. Under the Electoral Act 2022, it is mandatory for the electoral officer to sign and stamp every ballot paper that will be cast in the election. This is a legal requirement which must be fulfilled. Unfortunately, in the course of the tribunal, and which is one of the complaints of the APC, outside of its three other complaints, that there were irregularity in the election, especially as it pertains to the validity of the ballot papers that were cast or used or counted by INEC during the election. So when the tribunal went into its sitting and inspection of the ballot papers, it took out all those ballot papers, not against the NNPP, but against all political parties that contested the election. Because every unstamped ballot paper, every unsigned ballot paper accounted for failure of all the political parties that contested in the election. Those papers will have been cast for PDP. They will have been cast for Labour Party. They will have been cast for NNPP. They will have been cast for any of the political parties that had contested the election. But you see, it is a legal requirement that the ballot papers must be signed and stamped. So if they are not signed and stamped, they have not fulfilled the legal requirement of being accounted as valid votes. And so when these papers were taken out, naturally, it will be against the NNPP because it has the majority of votes declared at INEC. And so if these ballot papers are detected and taken out, naturally, it will deflect the votes of the NNPP. But the procedure is a procedure that has affected all the political parties that contested in the election. So when these were taken out, especially when you look at the fact that only two parties were contesting at the electoral tribunal, it means that the party that had the majority votes will now be the one whose votes will be deflated because of those votes are those that were unsigned and unstamped. And that was why when the tribunal took out those votes, it accounted for the fact that the votes of the NNPP is deflated and it has become the minority, given that those papers were unstamped and unsigned. Let me add that there is a need for the Electoral Act to sanction every electoral officer that fails to perform his duty. Now you see the loss is for the NNPP and the governorship candidate of the NNPP, who is the governor of Kano State. Assuming that the Court of Appeal upholds this decision and it is again upheld at the Supreme Court, what is the position of the electoral officer that refused to stamp and sign this document? Does it mean that he will just go scot-free in spite of truncating the mandate given to the party by the people of Kano State? And that is very, very important. And it is the reason why INEC should truly become independent. In the electoral process, we make the INEC, if we are suing a party that is in power, we make INEC a respondent. That is why you see INEC will be a respondent supporting the PDP in one state. INEC will be a respondent supporting the Labour Party in another state. INEC will be a party against Labour Party in another suit. INEC will be a party supporting the APC in another suit. So INEC being a respondent to all these suits make INEC a little bit not independent in the discharge of its duties. Because in some places it will say yes. Then in the same scenario in another place affecting another political party, it will say no. I think there is the need to make INEC truly independent and make it a separate party in electoral process so that it can be able to defend its actions. Now you see in the case of Kano State, there is no place for INEC now to defend why it has not signed or stamped these ballot papers. Why? Because INEC was already a respondent and every action of the court or tribunal that affected the party and the candidate has also affected the electoral commission, which is not supposed to be so. I think in future, our legislators, especially at the national level, needs to look at these things so that people can be accountable for their actions. Now, the electoral officer that has refused or has failed or has deliberately looked the other way by failing to stamp or sign these documents will be scot-free Probably he is even sitting in his office, either in Kano or Abuja, watching what is happening, which is unfortunate.
Hmm. Now, let's talk about some more about what punishments are there for the electoral offenders. In this case, well, let's also look at the fact that sometimes parties just go to court to invalidate, or just because they can go to court. Now, if the court, for instance, in this kind of situation where some votes were found rendered invalid, shouldn't a rerun have been the best call to say let's have a rerun? Since the fault is not the fault, basically the fault of the political parties, but that's of the INEC staff who didn't do their job.
Yes, ideally, that is what most people will have thought. But we cannot be able to reach that verdict on our own as a public, because we have not read the judgment and reason for the judgment given by the tribunal. We are only getting this scanty remarks from the press. We are also getting it from what we read on the social media platform. I think we will be more learned, and we will take a better decision if we see the reasons for this judgment. But ideally, as you have pointed out, what will have been the effect should have been that it is not the fault of the APC or the NNPP that these ballots were not stamped. And if it is not their fault, whose fault was it? We will see clearly that it is fault of the INEC by the consent or the deliberate omission or commission of act of one of its electoral officers who is mandated by law to sign and stamp this document. Since he has failed, on whom should the blame be? It should not be on the party or its candidate, or a party that was declared winner based on the recklessness or carelessness or deliberate omission of the electoral empire. I think the tribunal, and I believe what you say, that it should have been a rerun, but we cannot be definite in our stance until we see the reason for the judgment, because the court might have accessed other things from the witnesses which has led it to reach this verdict. We have not seen the testimonies of witnesses. We don't know what the witnesses have said. We don't know the defense of INEC. We don't know whether INEC might have denied that they didn't even make these ballot papers part of the ballot papers that were accounted for, but they declared it carelessly. These are issues that the judgment will reveal, and until we see it, we cannot be able to be definite over this position. More so, the matter is already on appeal. So we are by law subjudiced, a Latin word meaning that you should not delve deeply into issues that are before court so as not to prejudice the public against the judgment that might come out of the court or tribunal. So being that the case, I think what we should pay attention to is reform to the Electoral Act in future. The Electoral Act must be very, very clear about the actions of parties, the action of political parties, the action of candidates, the action of INEC, and the action of every person who is involved in the electoral process. Of course, the 2022 Electoral Act has made elaborate provision about punishment of electoral offenders, but it will not be enough until we place the offenses and clearly at the doorsteps of those who have committed them. If we make these reforms, people will be careful at the INEC headquarters and state headquarters, where they will just sit and do what they think is in tandem with their wishes and aspirations, or they will just take decisions according to their whims and caprices. I think this has to be curtailed, especially in view of the fact that INEC has almost unlimited powers in electoral processes. Because once the process has begun, it means that every machinery of the process is in the hands of INEC. I think that law has given them too much parameter, and it needs to be curtailed so that punishment can be meted out accordingly to officers that have committed them. Unless we do that, we will continue to face scenarios like that of Kano and what happened during Oshimole in Oshun, and what recently happened at the Presidential Electoral Tribunal, which is on appeal at the Supreme Court of Nigeria.
Now, let's talk about the politics of Kano in the next 5 minutes, Barrister Zubair. So, I've heard people in the last 24 hours say, it seems like Ganduje is winning at Kwankwaso. First, a candidate who was supposedly nominated for ministerial position by Kwankwaso was thrown out. Some members of the National Assembly who were elected on the platform of the NNPP have had their elections overturned. Now the Kano State governor, which was said to be one of the instruments for which Kwankwaso had fought his fight against Ganduje in the face-off between the two political bigwigs in that state. What do you make of this whole face-off between Kwankwaso and Ganduje?
Sir, in order to understand the clear perspective of this, you must go back to 1983. 1983 was the year that Malam Aminu Kano was demised. He died in April 1983. Before that time, he held the people of Kano and their politics together. And the general community of the masses were very, very loyal to Malam Aminu Kano. And they will do whatever he wished. In fact, they will always follow the party and the path he has charted for them. In 1983, a governor was elected in Kano State. He was called Sabo Bakinzuo. He belonged to the Aminu Kano faction of the Tabo PRP. Then on the other side, there was Abubakar Rimi, who was a member of the PRP. And in fact, he had become a governor on the platform of the PRP. But in 1981, he became to the NPP, a party run by Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. So the battle line was drawn at that time, but it didn't manifest until the death of Malam Aminu Kano in April 1983. When that manifested, a battle line was drawn, and it was fierce and very, very violent between the faction of Sabo Bakinzuo of the PRP and Abubakar Rimi of the NPP. And since that time, the division in politics along some imaginary ideological lines were formed in Kano. So whichever part one of the two parties took, the other party will not gain or go to that line. And that was what continued throughout the regime of the military, throughout the time that Abubakar Rimi resurfaced and even contested the presidency. When he contested the presidency, people were clearly against his aspirations. People like Muhammad Bashir Wali, who took a line and said that they will be with Aminu Kano. So in 1999, when politics came up, Ganduje was in the Aminu Kano faction of the PDP, while Rabiu Musa Konkoso was in the Abubakar Rimi faction of the PDP. Now, the battle line was drawn again. At that time in Kano, even during the campaigns for primaries, there were a lot of violence. Historically, Ganduje and Konkoso had been friends since when they were young men. In fact, when they were in their teens, they had been friends and they grew up together. But this ideology of the PRP divided them. And when they joined the PDP together, they were mostly divided. So Ganduje was on the Aminu Kano side. Konkoso was on the Abubakar Rimi side of the PDP. And so the battle was fierce. When violence continued to erupt in Kano in 1999, the then late Emir of Kano, Ado Bayero, called the two parties and asked them to mend their fences in the interest of the masses. And so other candidates who were contesting the primaries were jettisoned and begged to downplay their ambition. And Konkoso was made the governorship candidate of the PDP. And Ganduje, his arch enemy, was made the candidate of the deputy governorship candidate of the PDP. They were counseled to work together. And by the grace of God, Ganduje was very loyal as deputy governor. In fact, when they lost the election in 2003, they went together when Konkoso was minister. But that conflict had always been there because Konkoso never wanted Ganduje to become governor. So when he opted to become governor, Konkoso even fought his ambition. But by the grace of God, Ganduje became the governor. And that crack in the leadership and the ideology of the various political interests manifested. And it manifested clearly. That is what is still playing out today. So that conflict has been a long-standing conflict from their days in the PRP through to the military regimes, through their stint in the PDP, through their stint in the APC. Because you remember that both of them were in the APC when Konkoso contested the presidency in Lagos against Muhammadu Buhari. So this is a conflict that will continue to manifest itself. Ganduje tried after this election when he became the national chairman of the APC, because Konkoso was quoted by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to come back to the APC so that Kano State can become a party that is compliant with the federal government. So that intercourse and that relationship extended to the national chairman of the party, extending a hand of friendship to Konkoso, but which was revoked because his ambition was a ministerial appointment, which was justiced by the federal government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So that done, he saw that there was nothing again left for him in that party. And so he took his ambition back to Kano, to the tribunal, hoping that the tribunal will retain the governorship of the ANPP so that that can be used as a carrot for any political party that is trying to approach Kano for them to work with him. But it has not worked that way. We are going to wait for the appeal to see what will finally happen. But at this time, the battle line is drawn. What the Kano state governor did yesterday was to de-escalate the violence that will have happened yesterday in Kano based on that ideological imaginary leaning. And it was good because the Kano State Police Commissioner took the bull by the horn and other security agencies helped in securing that there was peace across the state yesterday.
Very well said. We're going to continue this conversation. Just keep it with us. We'll be talking some more right here on your radio experience. You can count on. My guest has been Barrister Elzubair, who is, very well familiar with the politics of Kano State. You can tell from, the historic background he has given to the conversation. We'll be talking more. Stay with us.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Yanga Lotto don't come. Come chop better prices every day with people get chance to win. Bone straight hair, iPhones, Samsung phone unko, iPad, laptops, TV, and many orishi them for 100 naira in Kechi where you day. Yet Sunday, where that's your 100 naira change. Oga Yanga don't come. Yanga Lotto don't land with just 100 naira. If it be you, play Yanga Lotto today. Yanga Lotto, do Yanga.
Oga Yanga madam, make we do, won't you make it Yanga? Yanga Lotto, which come choppy Yanga.
Please listen to this announcement. A reputable media house is looking for experienced media marketers with excellent command of English and a minimum experience of 3 years. Interested applicants should call 080 59 19 8658. That is 080 59 19 8658. Thank you. Please listen to this announcement. A prestigious spa and salon needs the following: a therapist, a nail technician, and a hair stylist. Interested applicants should send their CV via WhatsApp to 081 579 17278. That is 081 579 17278. Thank you.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Thank you for staying with us. You're still on to Eagles Outlook on your radio experience. You can count on Eagles 102.3. We'll be talking about the Kano state situation where the Kano governorship election petition tribunal has sacked the governor of the state, Abba Kabir Yusuf, and declared Gawuna of the APC winner, and it is instructed also that the INEC withdraws the certificate of return issued to Abba Kabir Yusuf and issue same to Yusuf Gawuna, Nasir Gawuna of the APC. Well, the conversation continues. My guest has been Barrister Abubakar Elzubair, who is a legal practitioner as well as a political affairs analyst, joining us this morning in the conversation. Now, Barrister Elzubair, let's quickly talk about what it is that we are seeing, where it seems like almost every election in this country ends up in the courts, and somehow people have said it seems like justice in this time is for sale, going by the number of just before the elections petitions delivered its judgment about a few weeks ago. One of the lead justice in the court, or the lead judge had said that the people who were trying to induce the courts and also bribe the courts, and she asked them to desist. This is corroborates the story or the reports by ICPC that billions of naira exchange hands in the judicial sector or system just for judgments to go certain ways. We also saw the statement by Senator Bokachua, which has generated a lot of conversation on the polity, where he stated that he had influenced his wife to help some of his friends while she was president of the Court of Appeal. This is the same Court of Appeal where some of these governorship election petitions will be going to. What's the confidence, and what level of confidence should Nigerians have in these courts with all of these that we've heard?
One of the fears for the civil rule in Nigeria is how the politicians are showing the people who should be the prime moving force of democracy to the courts, where candidates who have contested election are declared by the courts as adjudged rulers, or people who should preside over affairs of our country. It is very, very unfortunate that this trend is becoming even bigger in trend, and people are expressing their fears. You will recall that the Chief Justice of Nigeria, just 2 days ago, expressed the fact that his fear is how these courts are being engaged outside of their legal mandate of solving the daily and practical problems of Nigerians and shifting this battle to the tribunals. According to the Chief Justice of Nigeria, a lot of time is spent by judges who should be handling practical and daily matters in court are now at the tribunal handling issues, and it takes toll not only on the judges and the courts, but it takes toll on the time that we spend taking these matters to the tribunal and to the courts by the politicians. Based on what is happening from the pre-election matters through to the time that INEC will declare an election, to the time that the tribunals will be able to conclude their work. If you are dealing with the courts, or if you are regular with the courts, you will see that some of the judges will not be in their court for upward of 4 months, or 5, or sometimes 6, because they will be at the tribunal. And in those courts will be cases that have already commenced, and nobody will be able to continue with those cases until the judge comes back from the tribunal. And so parties will continue to go to that court, and the registry will continue to give them dates through adjournment. Some of them will become frustrated and will leave their rights because they will no longer have the patience to continue going to those courts. So it is unfortunate that our entire system is shifting to the courts. I think the politicians need to check their acts. First, when they are conducting their primaries, Let it be that the political party should be able to check every contestant that is going in for a position in the political party. Check the person's qualification, check the person's pedigree, check the person's basic constitutional requirement for the contest before allowing him to contest. Then the political parties also should be transparent when they come to conduct these primaries. Sometimes it is the political party goons and those occupying executive positions that will select candidates for particular political parties because they have powers in their hands. I think it should not be like that. Let them allow the process to conduct itself such that the majority of votes of party members should be accounted to whoever will emerge as the party candidate. If they do that, you will see that there will be very few pre-election cases. And so we wait for the general election. When parties submit the documents of their candidates to INEC and to the SSS, it is a such specter that a person will be in the House of Representatives or a governor, and then we hear in court that the person didn't attend secondary school, that he forged his certificate. What did the SSS do when they checked his documents? What did INEC do when these documents were before them and they had the right to check these documents and validate them? So INEC and SSS should draw their dragnet wider such that anybody that is contesting should be able to have his documents checked.
All right.
He should be able to fulfill the constitutional requirements. If we do that, you will see that there will be very few cases at the tribunal.
Well
then
said.
the courts. Judges are selected on the basis of their integrity, right from the day that they will be appointed. But in the last few years, a lot of things have happened to the judiciary. You can see that last 2 years, the Nigerian Bar Association appealed to President Muhammadu Buhari not to swear in about 70 judges of the Federal High Court. The reason is because they were appointed on the basis of their family, or closeness to justices of the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court. But they were sworn in. Along the line, there are a lot of complaints that judges are being elevated because they are close to some justices. They are elevated because of one or two things they have done. At a point in Nigeria, against the Federal Character Commission, there was a Chief Justice of Nigeria whose 2 children were High Court judges. His younger brother was in the Court of Appeal, and he himself was a Chief Justice of Nigeria. And do you know the funny thing? His grandchildren were magistrates in various courts in his state and the FCT. What is the Federal Character doing? And what was the National Judicial Council doing in vetoing the background of people to be appointed as judges? So if you appoint somebody that is incompetent, the simple thing is for him to take bribe or take money or be induced by people who appoint him so that he can do their bidding. Sometimes this is what is happening to the judiciary. But the truth is that overwhelming majority of Nigerian judges are honest. Overwhelming majority of Nigerian judges are patriotic. Overwhelming majority of Nigerian judges are trying to do the right thing so that they can elevate themselves through their profession and career and elevate the country.
All right,
so the allegations of bribe may not be far-fetched and they may be true. And I don't think this is a complaint that is in the majority.
Well said, Barrister Elzebari. Let's bring in our callers 09073530044 and 09087668888. Hello, good morning.
Hello, my prince. Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
sir.
Hundu. Taking me.
And God bless your guest, barrister, in the house. He has spoken so well. I agree with him on so many issues. And one of the, my name is Hundu. I'm calling from local government, National State. One of the issues I agree with him, Prince, is on the issue of political parties. During the primaries, they will actually organize a committee to screen the candidates. They say the committees are not doing their job. And I will cite a case of Bayelsa, where Mr. Lion was being elected, and all of a sudden, through Hada, all of a sudden the court stopped him from being sworn in that his deputy, and not him, that his deputy governor elected has issue with his status. So the people who were assigned to go and screen them, what kind of job did they do? So at the end of the day, the governor-elect David Dion in Baisa was not sworn in, and that is why today we have PDP that took over. And when PDP took over, Baisa State, many people were clapping their hands because the judgment, went their way. But one thing I want to say also is that we Nigerians and politicians, we should learn to accept judgment that is coming from the court. Because just like the guests have said, the overwhelming judges, the majority of them, they are honest. There might be some few bad things among them. The majority of them are good. And I want to talk about Kano, as well. That, you see, it's not just Kano. Like my state, in Benue, in Benue zone, Benue.
All right, second bay, who the network did you in? Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, comrade.
Yeah, this is Comrade Aruna. Good morning to the guest. I really enjoy your show. He really enlightened us a lot about what is taking on in Kano. But please, I want to ask your guest, I believe he's listening to me. I'm not a legal practitioner, but in my own little understanding about election, it would be unfair to deduct that vote from Abba Gida vote. I'm expecting the judiciary or the judges to cancel that election or to go for a rerun. So please, can you throw more light on that? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. But you just heard Comrade Haruna asking and saying maybe throw more light on how the judgment or the courts arrived at deducting the invalid votes only from the NNPP.
No, like I said before, most people will adjudge these deducted votes to be from the NNPP because the NNPP has the majority of votes about which it was declared the winner of that election. But you see, this unsigned and unstamped ballot papers will affect all the political parties in the contest. Nobody can be able to be certain that which party brought this through which electoral officer. But the provision of the Electoral Act is that once a document is not signed and stamped, it should not be used as a valid vote cast for an election. So whichever party that was affected is now affected by that judgment. Because once it is not stamped, once it is not signed, it means that it did not emanate from INEC. That is the legal perspective. It means that INEC did not bring it into that ballot box. So the allegation is that probably one of the political parties in the contest might have snatched this, might have sneaked these fake ballot papers into the box. It could be NNPP, it could be PDP, it could be Labour Party, it could be APC, it could be any of them. But the most affected by this action now is the NNPP because it had the majority of votes and was declared as the winner in that election. Whoever has done it is now somewhere maybe laughing if it was against this party. That is why we say that punishment should be meted out to officials who fail in their duty to do the right thing. Because the electoral officer in charge of that signature and stamp should be called and be questioned as to why these ballot papers were found in those boxes.
Okay, let's bring in one more caller. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, my brother. God bless you.
Good morning, Eldon Oja. Good to have you.
My question to our guest, I think he's still in the studio there.
He's here.
If you're the another commit offense, are you going to punish even myself because of your offense? If I may commit offense, I don't know the way God is in Nigeria and looking for something. This thing was declared by INEC. INEC is supposed to cross-check every ballot paper before they declare it. And then they cross-check it. They don't say it's normal. And then they declare somebody a winner. And then now you are removing that person without punishing the INEC. If you are being the judge, if your manager will be the judge, I will remove the chairman of INEC and tell them to running the election in Kano State. Be running. That's the best thing. But you say you cancel this one and give the governor to another person. The same thing they do in Imo State. If that's the last thing, you don't punish INEC. If the person who win the election, you are going to punish. It's not fair. So they want to send this Nigeria ablaze, and they are warning them. If they venture send this Nigeria ablaze again, they have send Nigeria ablaze.
Thank you, Elder Onoja.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
We suffer bring Nigeria together for them. And then they say, give me the government, we'll give to them. If they venture leave Nigeria into war again, they are going to pay for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's bring in this caller. Hello. All right, I lost that one. Before we take your final remarks on the show, Barrister Elzebert, let's squeeze in one more caller. Hello, good morning.
Good morning,
Good morning, Chidin the BC. We have 1 minute. Go ahead, talk to me quickly.
My take is on INEC. All this from the INEC and the electoral laws that is not simplified completely. If the electoral laws are completely simplified on technology, equipment like divers, all these complaints and issues will never arise. But all these things we are facing today are the loopholes from the INEC and the electoral laws.
Okay.
If this is corrected, we won't have problems. All these court cases will not arise.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chidin the BC. That's your submission there. Barrister Elzebert, your final thoughts. You've just heard from the listener what their thoughts are. What would be your final, closing remarks as we close, drop the anchors this morning on the program?
I think INEC and other stakeholders, including the non-governmental organizations, should call for proper reform of our electoral act, especially by dusting the Lowell Ways Committee report. This will be far-reaching, and it will help us in future in our electoral processes. Lastly, sir, the matter will be at the Court of Appeal. Let us help the judges or justices by praying that God grants them wisdom so that they can do the right thing for the people of Kano State, so that Nigeria can be at peace and the people will be at peace with their country.
Very well said. And this is where we would have to drag the conversation to a halt this morning. A big thank you to Barrister Abubakar Ezeba, a legal practitioner and political affairs commentator. Thank you so much for talking with us this morning. It was a great privilege, interesting conversation with you. Let's do this again tomorrow at the top of the hour 9. Be there for fresh conversations as we